So again, the topic is grief and learning how to deal with it. This is the last interview for today, and I'm at Community Hospice. This is Marilyn Jones. Marilyn, tell people a little bit about your background and how you can help deal with grief.
Sure. I am the manager of the Bereavement and Community Grief Department here at Community Hospice. I've been here about 14 years, working with children and adults who are experiencing grief after the death of a loved one, and have a background in mental health counseling.
And you're probably wondering, why are you talking to somebody at hospice? Why are you telling me about someone at hospice? Believe it or not, the services are free and open to people. Talk a little bit about that.
That's right. We offer grief counseling for anyone in the community who's grieving the death of a loved one for up to 13 months after the loss. And that's all a full array of services.
And so with what we're talking about right now, the shooting that happened in Orlando, about 2 hours away, for people, there were some people here who lost their lives in that, but for people who don't have that personal connection to there, are your services still available?
They are. We may not be able to enter into a long-term counseling relationship with someone. You're saying that if they're grieving the tragedy,
Right,
but
yeah.
they haven't had a personal loss.
Yeah.
But we also recognize that even if a person doesn't know someone personally that was killed, there's still grief there. And so that's something they could call us about. We could talk them through. And even though we may not be able to enter into the counseling relationship with them, certainly we can give them some resources in the community.
And that's what that bereavement hotline is for. Can you give them the number right now?
Absolutely. 904-407-7001.
Okay, we're going to give that to you again when we wrap this up. But first off, Marilyn, you have something really great to say. We were talking about, remember you hear that, the stages of grief? Well, Marilyn says, forget that. Why?
Well, because what we have learned is that nothing about grief is nice and neat and orderly.
Okay.
Grief is much more fluid. Our feelings can change moment to moment. They don't follow nice, orderly stages.
So it's like a roller coaster.
Exactly. A lot of people describe it that way.
And we should accept the roller coaster.
Yeah, figure out how to handle the ride, because it can be a rocky one.
Okay, and with how to handle the ride, what advice can you give to people?
One of the main things is to be with other people who are supportive.
Okay.
Sometimes people tend to isolate when they're grieving, but it's really so much better if you can reach out to people who are supportive and that care about you and that you love them and they love you. That helps a lot.
I've been hearing a lot about this, community and coming together and, how important the notion of community is. I also spoke with Father Britt from San Jose Episcopal, and he said that he's a great believer in the power of community. He encourages people to, reach out to your own religious leader, but if that's not an option for you, then someone like Marilyn is. And let's talk about some of the other, a little bit more advice that you have for people in dealing with this. One of the things I want to talk about is, so you talked about, if you don't know someone personally who lost their lives, you can still grieve. Talk about that.
Sure. A tragedy like this can impact all of us. It really can make us feel so vulnerable.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
I think death is just really in our face when something like this happens. And it makes us aware that not only does something like this happen to other people, it could happen to us, it could happen to our loved ones.
And you said it can make us feel vulnerable, like the world is out of control.
Yeah, exactly. And we need to do something to start making ourselves feel more in control. And so sometimes things like reaching out for counseling or just to be with supportive people, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes it really helps to have an outlet. Then we begin to feel more in control if we're doing something with our grief.
So when you say outlet, are we talking about, maybe taking up a new hobby or working out?
Those can be good ways to help distract ourselves sometimes, or exercise, of course, is a good stress reliever. But I was thinking something more like channeling our grief into something meaningful. So, for example, you maybe saw all the long lines of people on television that were in line to donate blood. And that was really doing something that they felt, this is something I can do to help, the victims of this tragedy. And then other people were coming along and providing food and water for the people that were waiting in the heat, in those long lines.
So another thing that I want to talk to you about before we wrap up is, for people who are grieving this and haven't lost anyone personally, how do they respond to someone who comes up and asks, why are you crying? You didn't lose anyone, or, may not be as sensitive to this for whatever reason, whether it's because of the specific section of the community that was targeted in this.
That's a very good question. I think probably for anyone that's grieving, the thing they need most is just somebody to be there to listen. And even if you don't maybe get why they're grieving, if they didn't know anybody personally, or perhaps you have some feelings of your own, about the gay community and maybe can't relate to that or something. But if you can just listen and not judge how they're feeling or criticize them for, what they're feeling or believing, but just be that supportive listener. Okay. Boy, that can go a long way. Then they can, sometimes even just the process of them being able to talk it out and express their feelings helps to diminish the intensity of what they're experiencing.
And let's give out that number for the bereavement hotline one more time.
Sure. 904-407-7001.
Got it. Marilyn, thank you very much.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
At Community Hospice on Bakari Savage, Channel 4, the local station.